Well, I believe you have my sound reaching your ears wherever you happen to be. Everyone, it's Railnatter, we're here. Everyone hopefully has got a drink in hand. Hopefully everyone's feeling very festive. It's episode 197 of Railnatter, the Tubular Tale of Torksey Viaduct. I assume that's how you pronounce Torksey, because I'm going to be saying the word Torksey a lot this evening. Hello. It's the first of the festive episodes. I have got my, in fact, let's just Control P. There we go. Get the appropriate equipment out. We're here. We have sound, and most importantly, guten Abend. Hello, Martha. Hello, everyone. It's episode 197, which means we have to give the class 197 a shout out. Here is Lerpool Lime Street, a trial train here running. It's another CAF vehicle, and what's also particularly frustrating is it's a two-car. But why are we still buying two-car trains? Anyway, here it is. It's looking very smart. They're quite good-looking trains. You know, they look smart. British trains always look a bit weird. They look wee. They look very small. I don't know. I've had my eyes open. British trains always look really. They do look like toy trains. Anyway, here's Liverpool South Parkway, which is interesting actually, because I was looking up some data for Liverpool South Parkway recently. Anyway, what else can we see in this photo? There's a load of the camp markers here. You can see. Which are the cheap just spray on some yellow paint type rather than the official plates. But anyway, yeah, they mark that's marking the beginning, end, and 5 millimeter cant increments through a transition. Anyway, and there's some nice old OLE. There's some old OLE, some nice modernisation era. In fact, you can see a little bit right here. Some nice modernisation era overhead electrification as well. Lots of fun things going on. I'm going to just briefly go big face and say hello everyone. I've got a very festive. I do have a festive jumper on. Festive jumper, mostly because I can't find my Santa hat. God knows where I've packed it away somewhere, and I don't know where that somewhere is. Is it just somewhere on a shelf behind me? No, I've no idea. If I was organised / had time, I'd find said hat. But you're dealing with me in a jumper anyway, which is fine because it avoids me overheating too much. And I've got a very festive bottle of water here. Remain hydrated. In any case, Owen O'Neill is asking, was the Torksey Viaduct part of Network North? Yeah, I've not even put that in the news because it's so angrily insulting, and I might put it in next week's news or just ignore it because it made me so angry. Anyway, enough of that. We do have a little bit of news to get through. Let's get rid of my face again and be ready to talk about. Tonight we are of course talking about the Torksey Viaduct, and here is a picture of it looking tubular. In fact, it's a rather fetching image. That's a lovely long lens image showing, firstly showing the curvature of the tubular elements, which are we'll get to it, but they're over on this side. And then there's this thing here, which isn't a tubular element. We'll come to that. And why it looks so shonky and weird, and also apparently it uses rail. It looks like some old flat bottom rail sections there. Anyway, that's something for the future. I digress. We're already 6 minutes in, and this is a weavy tale, folks. Anyway, enough my waffling. Grab your drinks, snuggle up, get that blanket tucked around your toes, and welcome to tonight's Railnatter. As the Intercity 225 fades away. That's nice, isn't it? I always enjoy a bit of snow. As the Intercity 225 fades away, we have to start with some news. And we're going to try and hammer through this as quickly as possible. I've not done a pre-record for next week, everyone, so I have a suspicion there's going to be another live episode. Which the negative consequence being, we may not have lovely Emily joining us if she can't make it. I need to speak to Emily because I'm very disorganised. Emily, if you're out there listening, I'm so sorry. I'll speak to you. I'll message you. Anyway, I digress. Right, GBR Canary snuffs it. Why is this the Chiron? Well, it's because if you go to the page that is all the government have actually published in relation to GBR, which was published on the 20th of May 2021, it was updated on the 14th of December 2023. If you click See All Updates, you get what the update was, and you get this little bit of text here that reads, if we zoom in on it, updated to reflect that government is no longer pursuing plans to deliver a centralised Great British Railways online rail ticket retailer. This is, you might think, not a hugely important point, but it's actually, as I point out, the canary in the coal mine. If they can't do this, which is the most basic, straightforward thing to do, because all the ticketing runs on one system, most of the ticketing platforms run on the same train line back end. It would be so easy to get rid of all of those and just have one. This is just so depressing. This is absolutely indicative of what's going to happen with GBR under the current government. It isn't going to exist. They're going to keep cancelling this, delaying that, pulling back from this and that, and diminishing it to the point where it really is just 10 hot desks in Derby that are labelled GBR. Like that will be the grand scheme of it, and a few BR flags flying around here. This is just such an absolutely basic. And as we talk, if you go back to Permanence the Permanent Way, and if you go back to, in fact, Martha is here chatting away, telling us all the various and fun things that she's doing with the Network North funding. That's cute new underwear, putting the heating on with funds diverted from HS2 as part of Network North, buying Emily a pint with funds diverted from HS2 as part of Network North. This is the, sorry Martha to read your joke out loud. It's your fault for posting it. Anyway, this is, as Martha talked about on our episode when we talked about transport integration, this is the one simple thing. You have a website that's a central website that people go to buy their tickets. You can integrate it with bus services, and that's like, it's such an easy, straightforward thing to do. But no, you're absolutely, Jarrett AO is absolutely spot on. It's that fragmentation to keep the neoliberal financializer circle spinning. I did talk about it a few weeks ago. And indeed, you're exactly right, because if we read what they claim about this, update on centralised Great British Railways online rail ticket retailer, let's just read it out verbatim. As set out in the white paper, we're committed to improving passenger experience on the railways. Okay, this is the but. The next paragraph is the but paragraph. The private sector plays an important role in driving innovation and attracting more customers to the railway. As stated in the Bradshaw Address, which was just basically the same speech that Shapps had delivered 2 years before, or a year before, we are focused on opening up railway data and systems, lowering barriers to entry for independent rail ticket retailers to improve passenger experience. We are confirming that we are not confirming, as if it was always the case, confirming that we are not pursuing plans to deliver a centralised Great British Railways online rail ticket retailer. They had explicitly said they would to do that before. Train operators will continue to retail to passengers online alongside existing third-party retailers while we develop measures to spur further competition in the online rail ticket retail market to make things better for passengers. All of what is said here is not better for passengers. How is their value in having competing online ticketing websites that have all the same ticketing restrictions? There is no competition there. It's nonsense. It's just making it more complicated for users. Number one thing that's aggravating. Number two thing that's aggravating. Train operators will continue to retail to passengers online alongside existing third-party retailers while we develop measures to do. Wait a minute. So the little hint here is, oh yeah, there are going to be multiple train operators. This is all going to be just the same as the system is now. There is going to be nothing. GBR is going to be nothing. That's the reality. That's the grim reality at this point. Which does again beg the question, why is GBRTT still in existence, and why are we still paying a lot of people a lot of money to work out what that nothing looks like? I'm glad they're there, because hopefully they're banging on government's door saying, no, it needs to be something. But the reality is this government doesn't care what the GBRTT has to say, because they didn't have anything to do with creating it. So, meanwhile, what do they mean by this, I wonder? The private sector plays an important role in driving innovation and attracting more customers to the railway. That reads very familiar. And I'll just say, I know a lot of people in the Trainline team, and there's some really good people who work for Trainline, and their website's really good. there are some fundamental problems with it in terms of refunds and a few kind of technical glitches, but generally the interface is fantastic. It is a good website, and it aggravated DFT when they introduced split ticketing. However, it's very interesting that Trainline shares rallied after the UK ministers cancelled that single ticketing source. Interesting that. And Trainline very strongly present in lobbying terms to government. Very, very lots of conversations happen between DFT and the bosses, the big bosses at Trainline. That's a very permeable relationship there. So this will there will have been conversations going on at the top level. And I dare say people who have shares in Trainline weren't very happy about it, and and those who are at the top end of the organisation won't have been very happy about it. Despite the fact that it's transparently the right thing for the railways to have a single British Rail branded website that does everything. It's just, this is the canary in the coal mine, and the canary has snuffed it. Anyway, let's talk about something else fun. Yes, A9 dueling in Scotland is now up to 7.2 billion, which is just way above what it was originally going to cost. And what's kind of interesting about this is, for that money, bearing in mind that's money that the Scottish government the Scottish government does have financial constraints in the way that the UK government does not. Scotland does not have its own sovereign currency. Yes, it still can borrow more than it potentially is, but it is much more limited in what it can do in terms of finances. So for it to be spending this much on A9 dueling, it is taking money away from other. Unlike in the UK where it doesn't work like that, in this case it does work like this. So this money is taking away from other projects, such as, I don't know, dueling and electrifying the Highland Main Line is a priority now, rather than waving your arms and saying it's going to happen in the distant future. They could be electrifying the steepest parts of and running bimode trains now. They could be doing that right now, and they could be planning to duel the whole of the Highland Main Line right now, and they're not. They're spending that money on making big piles of mud for an enormous dual carriageway road junctions. So yes, it's a very bad idea, and all the arguments about it's necessary to improve congestion. It won't improve congestion. It won't improve journey times. The dual carriageway will result in more traffic moving onto local roads, which will clog up where you join the motorway, the highway. It'll clog up where you leave the highway, and the road itself will become congested. It will not solve the congestion. It will not improve your journey times. And it will, most importantly, not improve safety, because unlike the average speed cameras, which do lock people in, the dual carriageway will result in more traffic flow, which will result in more vehicles on the local road network, which will result in more harm. So yeah, there is no good justification other than we want the SNP going, all you folk who would otherwise vote Tory in the Highlands and Perthshire, please vote for us, because we're giving you your big road. Anyway, similarly on devolved transport kind of matters, interesting little graphic that Transport for Wales put out, which I think is quite good actually, is TFW pointing out that when they took over the operation of the Wales and Border franchise, they inherited 128 trains made up of 270 carriages, and they are kind of almost doubling the number of carriages, or kind of certainly adding a sizable chunk to the number of carriages, and going up to 173 trains. So I talk about frustration of only 2-car trains, but generally they are increasing the size of the fleet quite substantially. And it's interesting just having that legacy of not for growth kind of laid out bare like that. It's quite nice. I quite like that. They're getting there, as it were. Martha's saying, don't start me on Trainline's ads that really try to deceive you into thinking their tickets are cheaper than anyone else's when they're really comparing advanced to walk-up tickets. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Daniel Smith, I don't care too much about the £1 booking fee, because it's not that much in the grand scheme of things, and their website is generally very good, but their advertising is very deceptive. It does make out as if they offer something that you can't just get elsewhere. This is an interesting one from Alistair McIntosh here. There's an interesting bit of numbers here, which is 3 modest community wind turbines in the Isle of Lewis put £1.1 million per year into the Sandwick Trust, which is a little kind of local community trust that was put together to actually kind of erect these turbines, and they'd only make £45,000 if they were private. So as Angus Hardy of the Scottish Community Alliance says, policy for this is how to power up Scotland. Yeah, everyone. I mean, the ultimate thing here is just nationalise utilities without compensation. Just, you know, they all deserve nothing more than to be immediately nationalised without compensation. National Grid, all the electricity generators, the whole lot, just nationalise the whole lot. Certainly water, in the absolute first instance, just without hesitation, do it to water. But all new energy generation should be done through the state. We should be, you know, with these massive wind turbine kind of thing. It's like, but where would that private sector investment come to build them in the first place? Like, what are you on about? Like, we're all paying for that in spades at market rates when the government could do the same thing, borrow the same money off itself, and at much lower rates. Therefore, our electricity rates would go down. What? It doesn't make any sense. Create absolute climate style in time. Yeah, just nationalise utilities without compensation. I'm quite serious. With energy, it's a more complicated picture because of there is a much more complicated relationship to unpick. But with water, you just do it. You just outright do it. Just kick them in the nuts, take it off them. Another little bit interesting here. Andy Westwood here picking up an interesting story in the Guardian. Cheshire East Council saying that it's now yet another council facing bankruptcy entirely due to the HS2 link cancellation, because they basically hedged their bets on this project coming, which was absolutely promised. It was a long-term strategy. It was supposed to be locked in government policy. They've invested in all the stuff that needed to happen around the station. Spent a lot of money on master planning and kind of physical stuff ready for the station. At Cheshire East, I presume it's Crewe actually that's done most of that work. Or possibly it's around it might be around the what's Cheshire East? What will that be? It might be Crewe. In any case, all that money spent, and with the intention that it would then get it back from the investment, you know, from the new developments and so on, the additional rates they'd earn. HS2 not arriving means all that goes into the bin, which means they lose all that money, a huge amount of money. They're not the only council. The DFT response is completely tone deaf and just ignorant. This was obvious to non-idiots. This is a consequence that's absolutely, utterly obvious if you knew anything about HS2 and had paid any attention to the way that it was wired into the local economies and the various plans that have been developed, cross-party plans. I hate to add. What's interesting is that this Guardian article quotes a lot of Cheshire East, primarily Conservative council, I believe, although I think it's gone to independent. Anyway, a lot of Tory councillors who are also saying we're really, really unhappy about this. Anyway, what else? Yes, Jürgen Meyer here has been a former Siemens grandee, has picked up a Labour role to develop a kind of an independent informant, as it were, but one kind of publicly visible one, kind of picking up and developing an expert review on how to deliver transport networks, rail included in that. So that's going to be interesting to see. Will Jürgen sort of just say what Rachel Reeves wants to hear, or will he actually basically say, we had a plan, why would we reinvent that plan? Let's do that plan. Anyway, this is an interesting one and a very nice picture. 99% of East West Rail Phase 2 track has been laid. Bicester to Bletchley here. What's fun about this picture is that it's my bit of HS2. Although obviously someone's come in and delivered the detailed design since, but they wouldn't be able to change it fundamentally. Here's my bit of HS2 here. And what's funny is how wet it is already, because the whole point of the design was I had to alter the design. And indeed, the reason East West Rail is so high up in the air here is because I lifted up East West Rail by 3 meters. So in a way, this is my alignment of East West Rail as well. In fact, it is my alignment of East West Rail because I gave them the vertical to sign off. So I designed both this bit of East West Rail and this bit of HS2, which is fun. And it's all because the original outline design of HS2 here was suspect. Never mind. Anyway, it's very nice to see it. There's some lovely walkable troughing down here. There's the Balfour Beatty machine that gave me my first job by doing such a dreadful job of installing the track around the down Cambridge flyover. Very nice. And this is where the infrastructure maintenance facility will be. HS2 going this way. All very nice. Obviously, this is basically where the Great Central Main Line's former alignment was as well. So this is one of the areas where this is one of the examples of this is what reopening the Great Central Main Line would look like. Anyway, very nice picture. So enough of that, and let's get my miniaturized face in the corner. Hello, here we are. So let us let us talk about Torksey Viaduct. And here it is, this fine thing, this fine structure. This is pretty much what it would have looked like back in yon day, other than not this bit here. So to ignore, actually, you know what? Let's change the color of the pen. I suspect we're going to want a slightly different color. Let's go for this orange-ish color. This bit, these bits here, they're a later addition. We'll talk about those momentarily. This Torksey Viaduct's interesting. I stumbled upon this story. Hello, I stumbled upon this story. With Remy is going, how's the embankment stable? That's super stable. It's been properly engineered, so they've properly engineered the embankment to make it stable. I wouldn't worry about that. That's the advantage of building new infrastructure like that, is you can build it properly. In that case, I think they just have used the correct fill. They haven't done anything fancy. It's just a surcharged earthwork that they've just laid properly and compacted appropriately. Anyway, here it is, Torksey Viaduct. This is it. This thing here. And this is an interesting tale that weaves this way and that way and covers all sorts of themes. And I think it's a fun tale. I've forgotten the mouse pointer again. No, I'm just going to scribble on things. It's fine. You don't need the mouse pointer. It's fine. Do I want to just put the mouse pointer on in case? Maybe I will. Just in case, because there are some other windows that we might skip to. Okay, there we go. So we start. When do we start? Well, we have to start by talking about the Sheffield and Lincolnshire Junction Railway in the late 1840s. Why do we have to talk about this? Well, because the Sheffield and Lincolnshire Junction Railway happened to need to build a bridge. But why did they need to build the bridge? For what reason? Well, we have to start by talking, actually, initially about the Sheffield, Ashton-under-Lyne and Manchester Railway. A railway that should be familiar to all of you, as it guides, it takes, so here's where's me, the trouble is I can't see me, there it is, right, okay, taking us from over here in Sheffield to over here in Manchester via a certain thing here called, this is invisible to see, a certain thing here called the Woodhead Tunnel. So this railway kind of was being built, and they thought, well, actually, you know what would be quite a good idea is if there's another company that's also developing a new railway line in the late 1840s, and that's the Sheffield and Lincolnshire Junction Railway that we just talked about. Well, okay, right, that's fine. So that's them. But also, actually, there's in actual fact, the oldest existing railway company that already had some Dockland railways and plateways up in Grimsby. That Dock Railway Company was actually evolving into the Great Grimsby and Sheffield Junction Railway. And we had these, what's going on with these three? So what's these three? So these three, so the Sheffield, Ashton-under-Lyne and Manchester Railway, the board voted to merge with the Sheffield Lincolnshire Junction Railway and the Great Grimsby and Sheffield Junction Railway to form the Manchester Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway. You should all know the Manchester Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway. And so by 1850, the railways were being very much built. They're happening, and well, actually, kind of by even earlier than that, railways got built pretty quickly back then because the Irish were everywhere, and you could just scoop them up and point them in the direction you wanted to get them building. Manchester Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway got cracking, and in fact, you should know what the Manchester Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway did, because they by the kind of the late 1890s, they'd built a huge network of different lines all over the place that you can sort of see faintly here in orange on white, a huge range of different lines. And indeed, by the early 1900s, they'd built a big long extension called the London Extension of the Manchester Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway, a very catchy title for the railway. Down to that their London that they have, and they decided to then rename themselves as the Great Central Railway. Hooray! It's the Great Central Railway. That is indeed the story that we're at. So this is a Great Central Railway story, but our protagonists here are the Manchester Sheffield Lincolnshire Railway. So we have the Great Central Railway. Let's just hop to. In fact, let's while I'm here, let's just go back to Rail Map Online. Here's the UK, and the light blue the light blue line here is all the Great Central Railway infrastructure. So the Great Central Railway comes down here. Actually, it shares infrastructure here. The Great Western, Great Central Junction Railway, or is it the Joint Railway? That's kind of forms the Chiltern Main Line, and then they ran kind of the shared lines down on the Metropolitan Railway down to get into London. So the shared infrastructure that really, as they actually went into the centre of London. But the infrastructure that was north of the Metropolitan Railway, as you see, is much smoother. It's the lovely Great Central, nice smooth curves for the time. We've done it in an episode on this, haven't we? Coming up to Leicester, through Nottingham, and then at that point it explodes, because that's where you get to the heart of this big complicated network of mineral delivery, primarily coal, to get down to London to attempt to compete with the coast, the stuff coming down from the northeast, mostly down the coast, to be honest, of barges shipping down the coast of eastern England. And you can see this, suddenly the line is, once you get north of Nottingham, it's much less nice again. It's much wibblier and wobblier, and there you go. And there's Woodhead, of course, very wibbly wobbly, because it's an older railway and it was not built to particularly high standards, frankly, over the top of the hill. So we come down here, get to Retford. We've been to Retford before for a rail natter, haven't we? You can see the BR section here where they realigned the Great Central to actually drop to get rid of the flat crossing. They could do that because the River Trent isn't next to it. We'll get to the River Trent momentarily, because there's this bit here. So this is where the route went down of the original Sheffield and Lincolnshire Junction Railway. Went down to Lincoln, there it is, and they shared the tracks with the GNG for this part, so they had shared running before they ended up building extra infrastructure kind of through in the other direction to kind of bypass that, fun railway competition. There's this bit here, there's this section here, and you can see there's Torksey. So there's Torksey, and so yeah, as you see, there's the junction there, and we've got this section here, this leg here. Now, there's an issue here. Well, there's the village of Torksey. Let's talk about the village of Torksey for a moment, in fact. So, the village of Torksey. What about it? Well, here it is. It's just a regular-ass English village. It's totally unremarkable. There aren't many. There's not a huge amount necessarily going on. It had a Roman canal, a big Viking camp. It had a big castle, which is fun. And then here's this castle, the remains of the castle. It was blown to bits during the War of Three Nations, often called the English Civil War. Actually, what is it called? The War of Three Kingdoms, not nation. The War of Three Kingdoms. Sorry. Here is very nice looking kind of what is it, like Tudor-esque ish? Is it? Yeah, it's very nice. It's Tudor, and it's very pleasant looking and smashed to bits. And what's fun is it often floods, so this thing just sits in water. And annoyingly, you can't. It's one of those situations. It's privately owned, so you can't go in and look at it, which is a shame. So obviously, just ignore that and go in and this is not legal advice. Go in and just have a look yourself. There's people should be able to just go and have a look at this thing. It's a monument. It's got historic value. Anyway, there we are. It's just got a castle. Very nice. Got blown up. Fine. But that's. There's another feature here. So here's Torksey, looking very nice. There's the NLS mapping. There is an issue though. So here's Torksey. It's really not very clear. You can see how bright is the line? Can everyone see the line nicely? Yeah, possibly. Torksey does have Viking name vibes, doesn't it? What is the? I wonder if we can find out what the etymology of Torksey is. I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't remember my. I would guess it does have Viking vibes name, doesn't it? Torksey, yeah, Danelaw type, Danish legacy name. Anyway, so there's an issue here, which is this thing. What is this thing? The Trent. What is that? What is the Trent? Yes, it's this. It's an enormous river, one of the big. I mean, compared to Europe, it's not. It's like a stream. But for the UK, the Trent is one of the big rivers, and it carries a lot of water, and it's very floody. Hence why the castle often floods. This is a problem because if you're building a railway, the things are in the way of it. This is a problem. So what do you do about it? Well, what you do about it is you hire an engineer for what became the Great Central, but the engineer of the Manchester the Manchester Sheffield Lincolnshire. I never forget the original name of the GCR. The Manchester Sheffield Lincolnshire Railway. The original engineer was later Sir John Fowler. John Fowler. Now, where's that name familiar, everyone? I wonder. I wonder. Well, here he is, looking strange. I don't know what he looks kind of like Native American coded. Like he's got like First Nation vibes. Good. I don't know why. It's just something that's anyway. John Fowler. Well, John Fowler is famous for lots of reasons, particularly for building the Metropolitan Railway here, which is relevant to the later GCR, of course. Here is the Metropolitan Railway being built, looking very massive, very disruptive here in the middle of London. What's quite cool is all the Great Northern Coffee House. Coffee was for the proles, by the way. It was a common thing. It was only made posh and fancy by gentrification. York House, that's fun. What's also nice is all these facades that have been lost. These just kind of nice Georgian architecture that's been sort of subsequently lost. It's quite interesting. Also, what's this thing? Oh, wait a minute, this looks familiar. That looks suspiciously like King's Cross. Damn it! My God, what about this thing behind it? Oh. It's not St Pancras is decidedly what it isn't. Yeah, it's kind of never really clocked that's where this picture is, but yeah, that is what that is, isn't it? Very nice. Yes, cut and cover. So anyway, right, I digress. The other thing, of course, that Fowler is famous for is this thing, the Forth Rail Bridge, the Forth Bridge, the bridge, the finest structure that humankind has ever erected, to my mind. An incredible feat of steel engineering, absolutely remarkable, wonderful structure. But these are all later in his career. For now, John Fowler, I wouldn't say he's an unknown, but he's an engineer who is, let's say, earlier in his career than he's Fowler. What can we say about Fowler? I kind of realise I'm weaving around. So the thing that you should have, Fowler is from Sheffield, kind of near to Sheffield. So he's a South Yorkshire lad. He was born to a surveyor. He I think one of the things I'm trying racking my brains for Fowler facts that I can recall with reasonable ease. He started on railway projects quite early on. I think he started on the London and Brighton. In fact, he definitely started on the London and Brighton, because I've just brought up the thing to remind myself of exactly what he was up to, and was kind of part of some other prospective railway schemes in the late 1830s. He ended up being the resident engineer on the Stockton Hartlepool Railway, and then was appointed as the engineer to that railway. And then he started his own consulting practice up in North, but he was too busy. And given that they had to take all their drawings to Parliament at the time, it was easier to be a consulting engineer in London. What changes? And so he moved down there in the mid 1840s, and kind of at that point he became the chief engineer of the Manchester Sheffield Lincolnshire Railway. Along with a whole bunch of others at the same time. Bearing in mind he was only a few years, by this point, in the late 1840s, he's only a few years away from becoming chief engineer of the Metropolitan Railway. So this is a preeminent engineer at this point. So, Quebec. This does have the, other than Quebec, it does have the second longest steel cantilever spans. Yes. Anyway, so let us press on, because he wasn't the only one. This is a man. So Fowler, in meeting the Trent, he's not the only engineer we're going to talk about. Fowler, in meeting the Trent, and a couple of the structures, but particularly the Trent, had a large span. It was a large flow, relatively speaking, and so it kind of needed as few spans as possible. And Fowler was interested in a new structural form that had been pioneered by these two. Who are these two? This is we have George Stephenson on the right hand side, and on the left hand side we have a chap called Sir William Fairbairn, the first Baronet of Ardwick, who's a Scottish structural civil engineer, and he was the third president of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers after Messrs. George and Robert Stevenson. Now, these two were... Actually, this isn't George, sorry. This is his son. This is Robert. Do forgive me. Sorry, Robert. They are. These two have been developing a kind of a novel bridge design for the main line along through North Wales. So what are we to say about this main line through North Wales? These two structures here. One of them is the Conway Bridge. Conway. There is, with a load of nice formwork as well as they developed the station, which is quite cool. You can see them kind of... preparing to hoist it into place, which is quite fun. And then the other one, which is this one, by the way, listed, protected, still there. You can travel your train through it. Sadly, this one, the Britannia Bridge over the Menai Strait, no longer extant because it somehow burned down, which is really weird. But I like this one because it's got a picture of the train on it as well, looking particularly vibesy. Anyway, what of these two bridges? Well, they have a particular form. And the form they have is that they are tubular bridges. Let us sketch. So, yes, Conway. There's Conway, and here's Britannia, which we're going to call we're going to call it the Menai. Is my face in front of that? Probably. Menai Strait Bridge. There we are. Menai Strait. Anyway, so these two bridges, they have, as you can see, you can kind of see it here. Basically, they have a section that looks like this. A section that's like this. It's got kind of a thicker bit at the bottom and a thicker bit at the top. And essentially, you can put your tracks in here and have your little train running through here like this, kind of coming through like that. And there you go. So you have it in a box like this. Fine. And the train runs through, and lovely job. There's the train. So yes, a very nice wooden sailing ship going underneath as well over here. That's true. That's very nice as well. So we have this tubular structure, and essentially it's kind of like an I-beam. So what an I-beam does is that there's an I-beam. Justin will shout at me for saying this isn't an I-beam, but in certainly when I was taught as an engineer in the UK, we call this an I-beam. You have two things called flanges, and you have another thing called a web, and the web holds those two together, but it doesn't really do any of the strongness when you have a thing, because if you've got a beam, let's look at this inside on, as we talked about when we did the bridge collapse episode, you have the beam bends. There we are, there's the beam bending, and it's the top fibres and the bottom fibres that are the ones that are in compression and tension, so they're the ones that have to be chunky. There we are, chunky, in order to survive as a beam, which is essentially what this thing is. And so that's why you have these sort of thickened sections here, and then in order to keep that thing robust, you have the nice thin walls either side. It's a novel design. Yeah, quite interesting. It avoids you having the complexity of steelwork that you get with having that you might have. The alternative thing you can do is kind of have a truss that kind of does distributes those loads in a different way. Anyway, burning rags can melt iron beams. That's correct. Yes. Don't worry about the what went wrong. What's fun is that there's actually a piece of this burned up bridge in the National Railway Museum. I should have got a picture of it, shouldn't I? You can all look that up now, I'm sure. Anyway, right. Let's clear all that scribbles. So those are tubular bridges, and this led Fowler to develop a novel idea, which was to develop a kind of pursue that design from a tubular bridge to a box girder bridge, which was these days you have a variety of little box girder bridges here. So here's a metal or a steel box girder bridge. Here's a concrete box girder bridge. So again, it's basically the same principles as the tubular bridge, except that you take that the tube and you shove it underneath the thing that you're moving around. And here's like a composite tubular bridge. Composite box girder bridge. So steel box girder, concrete box girder, and here's a nice composite. And to be honest, the majority of them are actually, I don't know if the majority are composite, but often it's quite common to have composite ones. It's quite common for box girders to be combined with cable stayed structures for long spans. So, for example, sorry, Martha's deliberately trying to catch me and send me off, and I'm remaining resolutely professional. Yes, Martha's right. The problem with the truss is that it messes up your bathrobes. It's very true. So you can see that the kind of the way that these distribute loads. So there's a bottom flange and top flange, and that takes all of this distance here. The deeper that section, the more span you can get. So as this if we've got our span here, on top of which we've got whatever our load is, as this increases, this span can also increase because it can cope with greater bending. It has what's known as the second moment of area increases. It can cope with more bending without failing. All good stuff. Anyway, here we are. Some box girder bridges. Now, what's great is that Fowler was like, you know what? I'm going to apply this to the bridge, the viaduct at Torksey, and he did. And indeed, on the left hand side here, you can see one of those box girders. It's slightly different use, slightly differently. So rather than having actually, you know what would have been good is for me to add a blank black slide here to let's do just that, and then let me just do this right. So rather than let's just get a bit of black slide here going on. Rather than having, so we've gone from this sort of section here for the tubular. We've gone from this to rather than having, so if you imagine the future, we've got a section that's like this, and it's kind of like this and this, and then you end up with kind of a section here and a section here, and that's that's how your motor car is that's the car, but going, that cars don't look like that. Fine, whatever. You know what's going on. Fine, whatever. You've got this thing here. Well, what Fowler proposes is actually to put the box kind of like this, and then another one on the other side like this, and so you'd actually have two small boxes like this that you'd then be able to sort of put your kind of deck beams across. So you end up with your thick sections here that take all the load, two of them, kind of like this one's here and this one's here. This is in theory more efficient, and likewise you've got your thick section here and your thick section here. Fine. This is kind of what we ended up getting here, and you can see that there's this and you can actually see them bending in the middle, which is kind of interesting. So there's they've got this slightly bent shape, which is kind of a slight bowing here to. I dare say it was built like that to slightly counteract the load as trains went over. Anyway, you can see that you've got these box girders there, and you can see the picture the box girders here, and then you probably just had some way beams. I dare say, looking at the shape of the thing, you'd have some way beams that would be laid onto the kind of the transverse beams, and hey presto, you have a arch principle at work within the box. No, I wouldn't call it arch principle. It's a bending moment. There is a relationship between arch principle and bending moment. But basically, if you have, let's clear this off. So you have say you've got a simply supported beam here, right? So you've got a nice simply supported beam. Oh God, let's try that again. And there we go. There's a nice simply supported beam, reasonably badly drawn. So if you have you have a load like this, and it's going to go across the bridge here. So this is our load. There's our load. Here we're going to go across the bridge. So here you can see that there's decent resistance to there's no bending because it's right on top of the support. As you kind of go further along. As you go along here, you can see that there is that the amount of bending that this kind of import a kind of a bending moment, and as you go further up, basically as you go further across, you end up with an increasing amount of load that kind of ends up looking like this, and then you get towards the other end, and the load is distributed away because it's getting close to the other support at the other end, and so you end up with a kind of a bending moment, what we call a bending moment diagram, that kind of looks like this, in terms of the. So the most bending happens in the middle. So which makes sense, right? If you sit your load here, not only is it's going to be the thing that causes it's going to cause your beam to bend the most, right? I mean, obviously I'm exaggerating, but it's going to cause the bridge to bend the most, and that's how you get your bending moment diagram. And quite often you'll see some structures, you'll see some old railway structures that might have like girders either side. So this is with the supports either side, and you might see that they've got reinforcing plates, kind of that do this in the middle, because they're overstressing in the middle of the, particularly on the top. You'll see this to increase its compressive strength on the top flange of whatever the girder happens to be. You'll see these plates that have been kind of wrought iron plates that have been riveted onto the bridge to kind of cope with the fact that it's failing. So this is some nice structural engineering behavioral of structures. Behavior and design of structures, which I never did very well at university. I'm going to be quite honest with you, but I've got a more than cursory knowledge. That'll do, right? Anyway, so there's a nice structure. There's our bridge. We have to enter a new antagonist, however. So we have this bridge. It's been built. What of it? Well, we have to talk about the Lords of the Committee of the Privy Council appointed for the consideration of all matters relating to trade and foreign plantations, as it is still officially called today. We live in a stupid country. No, this is actually, the shortened name for this is the Board of Trade. It's the same body. It's still got that stupid long name. Quite remarkable. Right, so, sorry, texts from my grandfather. Anyway, Board of Trade. Why do we have to talk about the Board of Trade? Well, because the Board of Trade is the body that appointed the Board of Trade is the body that appointed inspectors to Her Majesty's Railway Inspectorate, as it still was then. And this was the body at the time that had the responsibility for saying, yes, you can open your railway, no, you cannot open your railway. So this is important, folks. Now, why is this important? Well, because we've got our bit of the Manchester, Lincolnshire and Sheffield, Manchester, Sheffield, Lincolnshire Railway. I nearly got there. We've got our bit of that railway built now, but can it open? So it's 1849. In fact, 1840. Here is the law that printed on the King's paper or whatever it is. Here's the law that created the. There it is. Whereas it is expedient for the safety of the public to provide for the due supervision of railways, this is 1840, be it therefore enacted by the Queen's most excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and the consent of the Lords Spiritual and Temporal and Commons in this present Parliament assembled, and by the authority of the same, that after 2 months from the passing of this Act, no railway or portion of any railway shall be opened for the public conveyance of passengers or goods until 1 calendar month after notice in writing of the intention of opening. The same shall have been given by the company to whom basically it's saying here we are, the same shall have been given, the return of that, by the company to whom such railway shall belong, to the Lords of the Committee of Her Majesty's Privy Council appointed for Trade and Foreign Plantations, the Board of Trade. And this act created HMRI as it still exists today. Actually, it doesn't exist today. They don't exist. They got absorbed into the Railway Safety Directorate in the RR, and so they don't exist today. But there is still a His Majesty's Inspector who, at the moment, is still in Prosser, I believe. Anyway, enter a character. We have to talk about Sir Charles Pasley. Sir Charles Pasley is the right, for clarity. Until as recently as the 1960s, HMRI's inspecting officers were recruited from the Corps of Royal Engineers. So there is already a close relationship between the military and the railways, which for all sorts of other reasons. But this is yet another link. So in 1846, this chap, who was Her Majesty's Inspector of Railways, happened to be, let's go to June 1846. So he passed for opening a section of the North British Railway between Edinburgh and Berwick. Unfortunately, jump forward to September 1846. Well, let me read from the York Herald in 1846. Let's just read from the York Herald, shall we? Short as the time is since this line was opened to the public, it is now closed. 3 of the bridges have been washed away, one at Linton and 2 others between that place and Dunbar. The cause appears to have been the late heavy rains, and it is thought that the contractors will have to restore the bridges at their own expense. There were no deaths, and passengers are now transmitted by the joint aid of rails and coaches, the latter of which, along with horses, have been forwarded from Edinburgh. That's the rail replacement coach there, everyone, making an appearance as early as 1846. So our pal, Major General Charles Pasley, had come under some. He came under some heavy criticism. This chap here, Charles Pasley, came under some heavy criticism for the judgment that he made that the railway was safe to open. 19 miles of track were wrecked, including the kind of several bridges, and further to this, to add insult to injury, some temporary works were undertaken to restore a service, and Pasley orally approved those as well. And then that also proved to be faulty, further delaying the opening of the line. By November, Pasley had been sacked. He was off the case. And indeed, at that point, there's a reorganisation of the inspectorate, which got rid of the post of Inspector General, and essentially kind of split that role between multiple inspectors at that point. So, goodbye. Enter his replacement, essentially. Or kind of one of the railway inspectors. So this was spread around. One of the railway inspectors, Sir Lintorn Simmons. That's correct, Lintorn Simmons. What a flavour of guy. You can see with quite a remarkable moustache. And indeed, his caricature, his moustache is equally as spectacular. So let us jump forwards to 1849. We have our bridge without the girder in the middle. That's a later addition, which we'll talk about momentarily. We have our bridge, What does Simmons do? Bearing in mind the context of everyone's a bit jumpy at HMRI because they screwed up real bad for the North British Railway and pissed everyone off. So this novel design of structure, what does Simmons do? He rejects it. He rejects the structure, stopping the railway from being able to open. So we have. This did not make people very happy at all. Indeed, the Institution of Civil Engineers had things to say about this. The Institution of Civil Engineers, what did they have to say? The subject has been discussed in the Institution of Civil Engineers, and every eminent engineer was of the opinion that the government inspector was clearly wrong. Yeah, pretty uncertain terms for the IC. I wish they were that bold about anything these days. In fact, they are not. They are soft as sheep nowadays. Anyway, so we had a battle on our hands. Fowler v. Simmons, these two at each other's throats. Yes, we have a challenge on our hands because Fowler, as the consulting engineer, as the practicing engineer, there's the chief engineer of the railway, has the competence. Simmons does not. However, Simmons has the power. He may not have the competence, but he has the power. And Simmons continues to say no. And there's a bit of back and forth between these two, and it takes a little bit of a while. Eventually, things swap around. We see a reversal. Basically, there's Fowler and the railway threaten a call for a parliamentary inquiry because they built their bridge and they want to open their damn railway. At this point, under the threat of a parliamentary inquiry that might take power away from HMRI and indeed the Board of Trade, well, let's have a read of what the Board of Trade had to say. Here we go. So, the duty of an inspecting officer, so far as regards design, is to see that the construction is not such as to transgress those rules and precautions which practice and experience have proved to be necessary for safety. If they were to go beyond this, or if they were to make themselves responsible for every novel design, and if they were to attempt to introduce new rules and practices not accepted by the profession, they would be removing from the civil engineer and taking upon themselves a responsibility not committed to them by Parliament. So that was in 1849. So, not much later in 1849, to be honest. They decided to change their mind and say, "Oh no, you're right. Yeah, that's right. You can open your bridge. On you go," which was useful, of course, for Fowler because he went on to do great things. it was useful for the what would become the Great Central, because they got their railway, the Manchester, Sheffield, and it's the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway. I cannot get that railway's name in my head. It's quite a mouthful. The Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway can open their railway and get things going. The Board of Trade stepped out of the way, and the railway got opened. But what happened to Simmons, you might wonder? Well, he ended up off fighting in Crimea with the Turks, and ended up leading the Turks in multiple battles. And there's a Lions Led by Donkeys about this that I would strongly recommend you go and listen to, because that's another strain of history that we could go on about for a while. Anyway, Simmons was out of the way. The Manchester, Sheffield, Lincolnshire got their viaduct. They got their lovely viaduct, Torksey Viaduct. Here it is, mapped out at the turn of the century. Here's Torksey. Here's our castle. So if you want the layout, there's the castle. Very nicely drawn, by the way. It's a really nicely drawn bit of castle there. They've really gone to town on it. Torksey Viaduct here. There it is, looking nice. Accounting for the passage. Actually, what's interesting is that the river is a kind of a slightly different. If we hop back, actually, just hop back. Yeah, okay, so you've got the river partly under there, fully under there, and then there's this kind of additional span here. So you've got the rejected thing again. There we are. Oh, it is kind of similar to the layout today. Although it's shifted. Actually, the river channels have shifted slightly. I was kind of wondering why it was why the viaduct was the shape, the width it was, but it is because the river has slightly changed its path. There is a little more to say about this though, because box girder bridges were not in the clear. And if we jump to 1970, some 120 years after Simmons's curiosity about the design, this happened. The Cleddau Bridge, a large bridge making its way through South Wales to get into Pembrokeshire. Actually, it's in Pembrokeshire, getting across to Fishguard, isn't it? You can find the Cleddau Bridge. You can find loads of pictures of the collapse, and it's let's just say it's messy is how I would describe it. There's loads of really really good and grotesque civil engineering collapse gore that you can see. This and it resulted in 4 people being killed, 4 construction workers, I believe, being killed at this collapse. It was not good. It was not a good day for structural engineers. Let's put it that way. What happened? Also, I just want another picture to. I mean, there's a variety of things I can explain. Like, firstly, you can sort of see what's going on here. There's been actually, let's drag our blank slide through so we can describe what's happened here. Let's just drag this down here. Yeah, there we go. So let's get rid of this. So you have your big pier here like this, and you've got the big box here that's being pushed out across, and it's being pushed this way, and there's like a temporary works thing here that's kind of supporting it, I think, basically. I'm not going to say who designed this, by the way. It definitely isn't my former employer. I mean, it's a long time ago. In fact, it was when they were called Freeman Fox, well before they ended up being called Hyder or Arcadis. Anyway, had a temporary thing here. This went, but also there was aided by the fact that I can't exactly remember actually the sequence, but essentially there was a buckle failure here, and so this basically buckled in rotational failure, and you can see from the picture, you can see really clearly this thing is buckled horribly and has folded over. I think the most stark picture is this snap from a video gives an idea of the scale, because I don't think you can quite get the scale from these pictures. This gives an idea of the scale. Look at the size of this thing. These are huge. It's an absolutely huge bridge that has collapsed and nearly wiped out several houses in a terrace. It's quite something. This wasn't the last, though, however, because there were 2 other failures. We had 2 other failures. One in Australia, which was the if I can remind myself the other. But let me hop forwards. I need to remind myself the other names of the strap. Wait, this is a minute. Let's go for. I'm googling it as we go, because I'm doing this without. I don't do rail natters with notes. Is the key fun. There we go. Yes, this is the Westgate Bridge here. Westgate. I should do. dative. Rather, I should do kind of cursive, shouldn't I? And this is the Competency in Ostdeutschland, and as you can see, bad things have happened. We've had a failure of a very similar type in Australia and in Germany. In fact, the one in Germany is really, you can see that this is a fully steel box girder, and it's again, you can see the crumple. It's just gone. It's gone. Not good. Not good at all. And this caused some pause, because it's not good to have bridges regularly collapsing. And there's a UK there are other kind of inquiries, of course, but in the UK there was a particular inquiry, the Meriston Committee of Inquiry into the Design and Erection of Steel Box Girder Bridges, snappily titled, and it published a report. It published a report in 1973, inquiring into the basis of design and method of erection of steel box girder bridges. This report is the Meriston Committee report is really quite remarkable. Massively improved the safety and understanding of these structures and the way that they're erected. The outcome of this led eventually to the CDM regulations as well, amongst other things, because it pointed out that the relationship between the contractor, the designer, and the client was lax at best. So you had this nice report that kind of laid out the problems and suggested alterations. And indeed now, here's possibly my favourite example of a box girder bridge, the absolutely delicious Carliskew Bridge in the far northwest of Scotland. Absolutely stunning structure. This is box girders are ubiquitous. They're everywhere, absolutely everywhere. They're very straightforward, very kind of pleasing, clean-lined type structures. They're very nice. Indeed, here is HS2 with what are box girders. These are box girders. You see here, you see the kind of the cross section over here as the thing's being launched out across the. In fact, all the segments being brought in and it being assembled in that way. Yes, box girder bridge, very nice. Now, back to Torksey, because jump forwards to 1897, and this bridge is carrying heavier and heavy trains, as many were, and it needed reinforcement. And so what happened to the bridge? Well, it had it had a big standard bloody truss. Liz Truss came along and plonked herself in the middle of the bridge. Here it is. You can see that this girder, the things I was highlighting earlier in the aerial shot, they were added later. And in fact, you can see that this is a fairly quick and dirty reinforcement, because they've just essentially plonked this big girder on the top of the middle of the bridge, making all the gauging a lot more fiddly, I dare say. But anyway, and they've then just got these sort of solid steel or certainly solid wrought iron hangers to just support. So each of these goes in and will have a kind of a plate either end to just basically support the transverse beams throughout, because originally these beams went right the way through between each sides. Now they've got now they're being supported, so essentially it's just adding to the capacity of the structure. So there you go. That was how they reinforced the Torksey Viaduct. So we jump from the end of the century. So we're now in 1897. We jump from the end of the century to the middle of the 20th century. Here's our nice jumping through with the mapping. We go from hand drawn to I think basically as hand. I think slightly better printing there. It's nice, isn't it? Two forms of essentially the same quality mapping. Slight geolocation issues actually. This is the same level of zoom, so it's not perfect. Anyway, I digress. You see, not much has changed. What is there any change? There's a new. What is there? There's a new building here. Don't know what that is. Possibly a level crossing. Oh no, it's just a new property. There's what is there? There's slightly more building being built at Torksey Grange. There's a new clubhouse that's been built here. We have to talk about British Railways though, because times were tight at British Railways, and well, let's looking at this picture again, sort of seeing that this is basically the condition that the bridge was in. Okay, with way beams and trains on it, in the kind of the late 50s. So 110 years after it was built, 50 years after it was actually more than 60 years after it was reinforced. It's tired. It's a tired bridge. And the reality is there are alternatives for this bit of railway. So if we jump back to Rail Map Online, on the 2nd of November 1959, this Torksey Viaduct here, this bit of railway gets closed. They close it and divert all the trains up via Gainsborough because you can, for not too much of a hit. They get rid of that nice direct line, save a bit of money. I can understand why you would do that. And it means Torksey carries trains no more. Or does it? Because, as we look here, here's a nice zoomed out view of this Torksey Viaduct there still. All sorts of fun stuff going on. You've got there's the Roman sort of stuff, the canal type situation. They found some coins. It's quite fun. And actually, you know what was quite good? If we go in here and do, I've kind of shot my fox there. Let's zoom in a bit on this. You've got the canal. You've got the Roman pavement and coins found in 1878, which is 96 and 97. Okay, interesting. There's Jack's Ferry, of course, down there. That's a funny old country, isn't it? It's funny to have such high quality mapping because you get such an insight into the weird goings on of our funny little islands. Anyway, I digress, don't I? So we go from here. If we just go to the aerial view, though, of the modern day, well, you can see where the railway went. Lovely. But you'll see something else is going on here. What the bloody hell is this? And also this. What is that? What's going on? And also, what's going on here? And also this bit here. What's all that then? Well, everyone, we obviously have to talk about Megawatt Valley. Megawatt Valley, yes. What is Megawatt Valley? Here is a picture of Megawatt Valley showing several power stations. Megawatt Valley is... Well, Megawatt Valley is, let's say, a part... I'll tell you what, let's just put the bloody map up. The Lower Trent Valley ended up getting called Megawatt Valley, and there's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 generating stations along the there. What's interesting is it's not that far from the Aire Valley either, which has Drax Eggborough Ferry Bridge, which I consider to be the gateway to the north. Everything south of there is the south. If you draw a best fit line between those three, this is the south, and this is the north. That's how you know what the north and the south is the line, the best fit line between Ferrybridge, Eggborough, and Drax. Anyway, I digress. This is the Trent, and if we get rid of all these scribbles, there's one of the power stations here on the Trent, Cottam, happens to be on the other side of the river from Torksey. What do you know about this? Well, firstly, we need to just say Megawatt Valley. There's some interesting little facts about Megawatt Valley that I want to kind of point out while we're here. One of them is that this had for this all of these lot. Where's my doodle? What's it? Where? There we go. Okay, right, good. All this lot generated a quarter of the power for the entire UK at its peak. It was generating generating gigawatts of no, not gigawatts. It was generating tens of megawatts of energy. This is I don't know, it was generating gigawatts. It was generating tens of gigawatts of electricity for the country. Just a very impressive amount of generating capacity. The sufficient. The water coming out of the power stations, despite having been cooled, was warm enough to raise the temperature of the Trent above the average for all the other rivers around it, which is definitely fine for the environment. I'm sure that had no long-term effects on the biosphere whatsoever. I'm sure it was absolutely fine. No one was destroyed by that. Anyway. Cottam. We must talk more about Cottam Power Station because in 1967 the railway was reopened from the junction up here. What is that junction? Nerds. What's the junction called? It's I think is it Clarborough Junction? Is that Clarborough? There's only one way to find out, and that is to go back to our georeference map and go this way. What is that? There's Cottam, by the way. There's Cottam. Innocent looking Cottam. Let's go this way. Going this way. Here we go. Clarborough Junction. There we go, marvellous. Clarborough Junction, lovely. Clarborough Junction in 1967 because Cotton Power Station was built here. There it is. Let's just cancel it. Cotton Power Station was built here, and it was serviced by a bit of railway connected up to Clarborough Junction. There's the bit of railway. Sadly, however, it didn't require Torksey Viaduct, so Torksey Viaduct remained train-free. Nevertheless, it was a bit of respite for this branch line, which is still functioning. Well, it's not functioning, but it's still maintained, looked after as a railway to this day, despite not actually serving anything because Cotton is closed. Here it is. Look, there's a picture of some merry-go-round trains carrying a lot of coal in and out. Which is interesting because the Great Central was built as it was. The Manchester, Sheffield, Lincolnshire Railway was very much built to move coal around, and that was the thing it was doing right up until its demise. With a load of Shildon hoppers here, bringing in hauled by an electrically controlled 56 or something probably. Oh, not a 56, electrically controlled 47. Or whatever it is, going at perfectly slow speed, dropping the coal to get mashed up into dust and then pushed into the power station, generating lots of electricity in an impressively efficient and hugely environmentally damaging process that creates far more toxic waste than nuclear power ever will. Anyway, that's for the future. We have to talk about Sustrans because we have a bridge with nothing on it. We have a bridge lonely, sat, collecting dust, ready to fall into the river. What can we do about said bridge? Well, what is there to do? Well, I'll tell you what there is to do. It's to get Sustrans to go, oh, by the way, can you reopen it and run and let people go across it, please? And you know what? Sure enough, yeah, you can. In fact, you know what? I'm going to get OpenStreetMap up because let's see. There's a slightly depressing, okay, let's get the cycle map going. Let's zoom out and then zoom back in on where. Let's get down to Lincoln. And let's find our way across too. There's Retford. There we go. They're lovely. Marvellous. Cotton and Torksey. Yeah. Okay, so Sustrans had things to say. Let's just put this here because... So let's just zoom out and look at our railway map. You can see, here's Lincoln. And there's a nice cycle path going out a bit before just dumping you out on a busy road and then not doing very much after that. Well, what would be nice is if they connected that up to completely disconnected, but there are paths now, so you can now walk across the bridge because in April 2016 they only went and opened the damn bridge back up and tied it up. Look how nice and smart it looks. They opened one side of the deck up so you can cruise across and have a walk around. And indeed, I'd kind of half planned, 58's at the end, Cotton, thanks to this. I kind of half planned to go and film a bit of this there, but then I realised that was a ridiculous idea for what would have just been a short bit. But I just encourage you all to go and enjoy it because it's a nice long viaduct. It's a very pleasant bit of walkway. It's nicely maintained, and here it's being opened with a load of happy people, some Sustrans volunteers. Some people very happy to go out and walk along the bridge and enjoy it. It's just looking very, very nice and tidy and enjoy the structure. And there it is. There's Torksey Viaduct with Cotton there in the background as well. A weaving, winding tale telling you there's quite a lot of stuff in there for you to enjoy, but hopefully an interesting little tale, the tubular tale of Torksey Viaduct there for all of you to enjoy. Going into many facts, many characters, some boffing, some boffins, all the good stuff. Anyway. Oh, what do you think of that? Was that all right? It's a bit of a Christmas tale. I should have got Lana's jingle bells to shake around, except she'd have heard them, so obviously I can't do that. But have a nice break, everyone. Have a nice Christmas. No, we're not finished yet. Martha Lawrence saying Sustrans range from extremely base when they want cycle paths on railways that aren't going to reopen, to extremely reactionary when they want cycle paths on railways that could in fact reopen. Yes. Such is life. Anyway, right. We must press on because. Oh, also do send over your questions. Here, as we found out, Andy Ash pointing out that south, as we found out, is south of Clapham Junction, according to this government. Yeah, that's a fair point. I was intending. The thing is, yeah, for people wondering how I was going to get there, I was going to take the train down to Retford and just cycle. It's probably about a half-hour cycle from Retford, which would be quite nice. A bit of a dog, a bit weavy. There's no direct line, despite the railway existing, or mostly existing. 'Cause to be fair, the railway exists and it has a train on it. But yes, a little primer on box girder bridges. There's obviously box girder bridges are a whole thing, but that's maybe another episode. Do more on structures at some other point, I'm sure. We did a bit more structural engineering there than I planned to, actually. Anyway, enough of me waffling. Let's get rid of my face. To all the audio-only listeners, thank you so much. It was very fun having you. It was a pleasure, in fact, to have you along. Hopefully this made some sense. I did draw some diagrams, but they weren't very good, so you haven't missed much. People, by the way, have been leaving lovely reviews. Please do keep doing that. It's so nice. It's nice to read them, but also it's good for more people finding and listening to it. And also, there's some nice reviews that specifically address the not nice review that I got about the person who was unhappy that we are a explicitly pro-trans podcast. So that guy sucks. And all of you subsequently leaving reviews saying that it's nice that this is a pro-trans podcast. I love you. You're lovely people. Anyway, move on. Patreon.com/GarethDennis to support more of this happening. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord for the Discord server where the chat continues ad infinitum. And PayPal.me/GarethDennis for loose change, abuse, and whatever else you want to do in there. You dirty hogs. Next week. Oh yeah, I forgot to do the next week bit. I'll tell you what. Let's fix the next week bit by going. I can do this. Wait a minute. Watch this. Episode 198. I'm editing on the fly. Let's just do this and that and this. It's going to be a Christmas surprise because I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is yet. Gareth, of course, is in very close proximity to the Menai Strait Bridge, the Britannia Bridge, and is saying that Gareth knows some of the trustees of the Telford Centre in Portaithwy. Portaithwy, sorry. Can I introduce? Yes, please. Pro-trans, pro-trams, pro-trains. All the good stuff. Yes, episode 198. Who knows? Possibly with Emily. Possibly something ridiculous. I don't know, but it'll be Christmas, it'll be novelty, and it probably won't be too long, so that you all have, your festive times. But a live one on Christmas, proximity to Christmas. What is it? Boxing Day, Christmas Eve? No, Boxing Eve? No, I don't know. What do we call the day after Boxing Day? Anyway, I think that's when it'll be. Is it the 27th? I think so. Right. Enough of my waffling. God. Shut up, Gareth. Right, let's close this out. All of you, have a lovely break, a lovely festive break. Enjoy your Christmases and your what have yous. Enjoy the solstice. I will see you all on the 27th. You take great and good care of yourselves. Drink plenty. Make sure you take as little care of your bodies. Well, no, do take care of your bodies, but in a gluttonous way. Gluttony is fine. Just enjoy yourselves. Take a proper break. Put everything down. Rest. And I'll see you in a bit. It's going to be weird doing live ones. Anyway, right. Ah, dear me. Cheerio. Cheerio.